silence, a trembling earth, a quiet terror awaiting birth. From the depths it awakens, the fearless titan, forging fury, a force that's frightening.
Godzilla needs no introduction. Even if you haven't seen a single movie of his, chances are good that you're familiar with the king of the monsters and what he looks like. Godzilla is such a cultural phenomenon that many believe he invented the whole giant monster movie affair, even if that isn't true. However, one doesn't stay a cultural icon for as long as the giant gorilla whale himself without gaining new fans over the decades and adapting yourself into modern media. One such modern media is video games, and Gojira is all too familiar with video games. For as long as gaming consoles existed, there hasn't been a single system that the giant dinosaur hasn't rampaged on, as long as you count older games being released on newer hardware. The games that most Godzilla fans are familiar with are known as the Pipeworks trilogy: Destroy All Monsters Melee, Save the Earth, and Unleashed. These games have a rather split reputation among the Godzilla fanbase, but most people, if not everyone, agrees that these are some damn fine games. I want to focus on one today that is my favorite out of the entire trilogy, mostly because it's the only one I've played: Godzilla Save the Earth. I was already a Godzilla and giant monster, or kaiju, fan before discovering Save the Earth. I was introduced to him by my grandparents, may they both rest in peace now, who had a huge collection of his movies. As a kid, my sisters and I would sometimes grab one of his movies out of their collection and pop it into the VCR. While watching the movie, we would talk about or make fun of some of the more notable or silly parts of the movie while it was playing. My fondest memory with Godzilla is when my sisters and I watched a scene where he played catch or dodgeball and then volleyball with the giant shrimp Ebirah. I even watched the first original 1954 Godzilla at my parents' place. That's right, I'm one of those OG fans who's actually seen the first movie all the way through. My grandpa Robert, who everyone called Bob, got an Xbox for when the kids came over. There weren't many games to cycle through for it, but one gem caught my eye when I was trying to pick something to play during a visit. It had the big radioactive lizard and other kaiju on it with the title Godzilla Save the Earth. After putting the disc in the funny looking X-shaped box, let's just say for the rest of the day, I was fighting giant monsters with other giant monsters. Godzilla Save the Earth is what really got me into Godzilla, and where I discovered my favorite kaiju of all time, Mothra. The title of Save the Earth comes from the song with the same name from what was the main theme of the movie Godzilla vs. Hedorah, known in North American releases as Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster.
Save the earth, save the earth, save the earth, save the earth.
We haven't even started the game and already we're getting references to Godzilla's past. This makes sense actually, as Godzilla Save the Earth was a game made to celebrate 50 years of the overgrown reptile's continued existence back in 2004. So this game is filled to the brim and jam-packed with Gojira goodness. In fact, there are so many Easter eggs and references in Godzilla Save the Earth that it's impossible for most fans, even a fanboy like myself, to catch all of them without some reference page being handy. I'll try my best to point out the ones I notice, but I suggest you play this game if you want to find more. First off, while there are a lot of monsters that didn't make it into the roster, they appear as either cameos or bosses in mini-stages. During a battle in some city stages, Batra will appear as a stage hazard, attacking either you or your opponent. Ebirah will show up as a boss fight during a minigame where you have to take down a submarine. The Super X-3, a flying weapon designed by the Japanese military in the movies, will attack you in city stages like Tokyo. Almost everything in Godzilla Save the Earth is a reference and love letter to the history of this movie franchise. If you want to find all the Easter eggs and references yourself, then I can't urge you enough to play this game and see what you come across. When adapting source material into a game, the most important thing you need to nail is gameplay. I hate whenever people say being accurate to the source material is the most important thing in adaptation. If you want something accurate to the source material, then go and enjoy the source material. Adaptations are always going to change something from how it originally was. Obviously, that's why they're called adaptations after all. But I get why fans don't want them to stray too far from what came before. Stray too far and you get Dragon Ball Evolution, where nothing feels familiar and you just end up with a bad product. However, there is such a thing as sticking too close, making everything predictable, boring, and not worth going forward with. This was the case with Godzilla, the PlayStation 3 game that was remastered here in North America for the PlayStation 4. I won't go over what all went wrong with Godzilla PS3/4, but I'll leave a link to DL Jado's half-hour-long review of the game where he goes over every detail of why that game is bad because it sticks too close to the source. There are hardcore Godzilla fans who will cry betrayal if you don't accurately represent the giant monsters, no matter the adaptation. A lot of them hate Pipeworks games because they made the Godzilla franchise into a Tekken-style fighter series that could also work as a successor to the Rampage games. The thing is, if the monsters were accurately represented, you would never be able to play as adult Mothra because it takes her half an hour in her movies to go from larva to adult, which translates to half a day in real time. I love being able to transform from baby to the winged goddess herself whenever I feel like it. Yeah, I agree that it shouldn't be possible for these monsters to lift each other like they're weightless before throwing each other across the map, but it's so fun to do. In Godzilla Save the Earth, your main objective is to fight the other monsters until their health meter is completely depleted. Standard fighting game stuff. However, while fighting the other monsters, you can pick up, throw, and destroy buildings, vehicles, and military weapons that get in your way. Throughout the main campaign, the action is divided between the actual fights and random minigames that will pop up. These could be anything from generic destroy an entire city to playing basketball with the other kaiju? No, I'm dead serious. This game allows Godzilla to play a game of hoops against his nemesis King Ghidorah, like this was a reference to Charles Barkley. My personal favorite minigame that takes the cake for being absolutely silly is the one where King Ghidorah had to capture 3 other monsters and put them in containment fields. Question: if the human race in this game's universe has developed monster containment technology, then how are any of them a problem? Ah, crap, I'm starting to sound like a nitpicky Godzilla fan. I love this minigame because it goes against everything you do in the campaign, and the humans are getting a giant monster to lock up his buddies in giant monster prison. Plus, it's just cute to watch Mecha King Ghidorah try and waddle up to a prison while holding a giant monster in all 3 of his mouths. You know, Gigan, it tastes worse than you look. It's times like these that make me wish I had arms. Gigan also just looks so helpless in his containment field, like he doesn't know what to do with himself. There is so much to discover in Godzilla Save the Earth that it would take me a day and a half just to cover it all. Now, Save the Earth is not a perfect game, and I do have some gripes with it. For starters, despite this game being a celebration of Godzilla's history, 1950s Godzilla is not a playable character or even a secret unlockable skin. Trust me, I checked. Actually, the roster for this game is kinda small, and most spots are taken up by alternate versions of certain characters. For example, we have Godzilla 90s, Godzilla 2000, and Space Godzilla. Then we have King Ghidorah, Mecha King Ghidorah, followed by Mecha Godzilla 2 and Mecha Godzilla 3. Mogira is in the Godzilla movies is just an updated Mecha Godzilla, so he could count as a Mecha Godzilla. That means a total of 8 out of 18 monsters are just recasts. This is by no means a bad roster size, but we could have gotten Biollante and Hedera to create a more diverse cast. I also wouldn't have minded Zilla being a secret unlockable joke character, even if he would have just been a reskin of Godzilla 90s. Come on, we're already playing basketball and dodgeball with these iconic monsters. Zilla wouldn't have been that absurd of an addition. Some of these minigames also feel downright impossible to achieve, or like they require a certain monster just to be possible. I had a real difficult time just getting Gigan! in his containment field as Mecha King Ghidorah. Most campaigns will have you facing Orga as the final boss, and Orga is cheap as hell, even on the easy difficulty. There's a Dragon Ball Z style beam struggle if two monsters fire their lasers off at the same time, and since the game doesn't teach you how that mechanic works, you're guaranteed to lose the first few beam struggles. The most disappointing thing for me was that Mothra never got more than her Godzilla vs. Mothra form, which was based on 1960s Mothra, when we could have gotten Mothra Leo and Armored Mothra as two for other forms or as two more playable characters. Overall, the gameplay of Godzilla Save the Earth is really solid and keeps you playing for hours even if you're not a Godzilla fan. Even better, if you weren't a Godzilla fan getting into Save the Earth, then you might leave this game as a super fan wanting to learn everything you can about the overgrown radioactive reptile and his buddies. Pop quiz. How many of you watching this know about Megalon? Now, how many of you want to learn about Megalon after seeing him do this? If an adaptation does its job correctly, it will make fans want to seek out the source material and learn more about where it came from. Godzilla Save the Earth has a special place in my heart because it introduced me to my favorite giant monster, Mothra. I want to make it very clear that I am afraid of insects, but I was enamored by Mothra from the first moment she appeared in this game. What's interesting about her is that Mothra was purposely designed to attract women into the giant monster movie genre. This is odd considering that Mothra is actually quite popular with men where I live here in North America, if you couldn't tell. The reason why Mothra is my favorite kaiju is because she was the first to take the concept and flip it on its head. Before Mothra, if there was a movie about a giant monster, the monster was always the villain. This beautifully winged behemoth has been a protector and a heroine ever since her first movie. Mind you, her first film had some teething problems, where she still did untold damage and ended the lives of countless innocents in pursuit of protecting those she cared about. Whoops. But ever since filmmakers have gone out of their way to make sure Mothie here doesn't intentionally destroy buildings and harm civilians in every film she's appeared in. Godzilla Save the Earth reflects this by making her unable to activate rage mode and instead use the power up to fully replenish her health and power. She also has a unique move in the game called Cry for Peace, which doesn't actively harm opponents but stun them in place. Throughout the action mode of Godzilla Save the Earth, you can collect points at the end of each stage based on how well you do. The better fighter you are, the more canisters and power-ups you collect, and the more devastation you serve, the more points you'll earn. If you played a monster previously in action mode, then you won't be collecting any more points with them the next go-around unless you put in an effort to do better than your previous score. I get that this encourages players to try out more monsters or get better with their favorite, but I've never seen a game before that actively hates those who try to farm points as much as this game. So what do these points actually allow you to do? Well, other than getting the high score, you can spend your well-earned points at the store on things, like more playable monsters, cities for more stages to play in, the gallery where you can get high-quality art, and Godzilla Final Wars? Okay, Final Wars was the newest movie to come out at the time, so no, they didn't have the entire movie to purchase on the disc, but you could purchase some sneak peeks at the concept art they used for the movie. Pretty cool. When it comes to purchasing the monsters, which I had to do in order to get footage of my lovely lady Mothra here, this game plays a dirty trick where first, you have to purchase the monster pack you want, which only unlocks one monster in the pack, then you have to purchase every other monster separately after. Oh my gosh, this game does not take it easy or make anything straightforward for anyone. In order to unlock Mothra, I had to earn and then spend 90,000 points. 90,000! That is the largest amount of effort and money I've ever made for a woman, and I'm pretty sure she's taken, because Godzilla's giving me the stink eye and not looking all that thrilled with me after I said that. Still, I'm really gonna have to work my ass off if I want to show any real girl I get with that she's worth more to me than the $90,000 I spent in this game just to get a date with Godzilla's overgrown moth girlfriend. There's only one girl I know who is by far more prettier and worth way more effort than Mothra, but I'm gonna keep that little secret to myself. There are various power-ups and collectibles you can gather through the main action mode. They range from your standard health and power replenishment to the rage mode power-up. This allows most monsters to temporarily become more aggressive, faster, and stronger, while their hits do more damage. As I mentioned earlier, due to Mothra being a monster of peace, she can't use the rage mode power-up, and instead it fully heals her. Rage mode basically allows your monster to go Super Saiyan, just without turning golden or becoming a beefcake. There are also 5 canisters to collect that has something to do with the story that I haven't mentioned during the video until now. For good reason. What do you get for collecting all 5 green canisters? More points to spend in the shop and a negligible amount of health replenished. Yeah, they really don't do anything and aren't worth collecting. So the story around these canisters is that an alien race called the Vortak are back from Godzilla Destroy All Monsters melee, and their queen Vorticia wants the G cells contained in these green canisters to make her own monster. This is despite the fact that she already has several kaiju under her control and can study their cells to make a new unique monster. Yeah, the story for this game is completely forgettable, and I wouldn't blame you for believing this game doesn't even have a story. If you collect all 5 canisters in every stage, you don't unlock a new monster that Vorticia was building up to. I don't even think the ending changes if you collect all the canisters. The oddest power-up you can collect is what I like to call the Power of ATARI. It's a purple 3D ATARI logo. When you collect it, your monster momentarily glows purple while energy of the same color jets out, and that's about it. I have no idea what the Power of ATARI actually does for you, so if anyone watching this who knows this game more intimately than I do would like to step in the comments, be my guest. All I know is that whenever I see that glowing purple logo on the battlefield, I always go for it because I must harness the mysterious power of a failed and irrelevant console manufacturer turned game publisher. I will admit I haven't played many Godzilla games. I haven't even played the other 2 Pipeworks games at the time of recording. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee doesn't have Mothra as a playable character in it, so good luck trying to get me to play that. However, I'll give Unleashed a try since from what I've seen, it's just Save the Earth Special Edition with nearly all the content they cut during development added back in with an actual story. Despite the scathing review DL Jado gave it, a lot of fans like the Godzilla PlayStation exclusive game. I've never tried any of the 8 or 16-bit Godzilla games, so if any of you watching want to give me recommendations for, well, any other Godzilla games, let me know and I might even turn it into a future video. Even if Godzilla Save the Earth isn't the best Godzilla game ever, it's still worth checking out if you're curious about what all the commotion over Big G is about. It's a fantastic title that superbly celebrates Godzilla's birthday, even with everything Pipeworks had to cut out in order to release it alongside Final Wars. I do have to warn people that the PlayStation 2 version doesn't run at a consistent 60 frames per second, especially when there's a lot of action on screen, even with the use of emulation. When I was a kid, I played the original Xbox version, and I would recommend that version over the PS2 one, since it runs much smoother. And I mentioned emulation earlier because yes, this is the only way you can play Save the Earth since it's not available for sale on current platforms. Secondhand copies can cost a large amount, and while I don't normally advocate piracy, Godzilla Save the Earth and the other Pipework games are abandonware because I don't think Atari's gonna get back the license anytime soon. I'd love for these games to be re-released on modern platforms, completely remastered, but until then, buying these games secondhand or downloading them is the only solution. Overall, Godzilla Save the Earth is a brilliant game that not only respects the Godzilla franchise, but puts great effort into making every character and environment fun. Most importantly, it makes sure those who pick up this game don't need to have any prior knowledge of the franchise to enjoy it. It disappoints me how many modern games and popular franchises just assume you already are up to speed on everything before hopping in. I miss games that either took the time to explain what you're getting into, or avoided the lore altogether and focus on its own story or gameplay. If you made it this far and are still undecided on if you should give this game a try, I believe it's clear that you had enough interest to hear everything I had to say about it. I can't recommend trying out this game enough. It's a little tricky at times, but that makes beating a challenge and unlocking the things you purchase actually feel like you earned them. This was a game that made Godzilla fans and still creates Godzilla fans to this day.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep my